Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where through some miracle, last episode we managed to get this encounter. And that is, of course, fantastic. So we are going to warp over to that encounter, which is going to end up being about here. Oh, time is paused. Right. Let's unpause time, and we're going to warp to about here. Right before this Eve encounter. So this is, of course, going to be a little tedious for us to get in position for this, but that is fine. Let's just head on forward here, and hopefully we don't have the issues with our various maneuvers not working in the Eve sphere of influence. We'll see. Hopefully. It shouldn't take all that much to get us in orbit of Eve. The question is, do we have enough DV in our current pusher vehicle to get ourselves into our target orbit? And that is an interesting question indeed. One that I do not have the answer to. So, we got that time warp finished up, but of course we have to actually enter the sphere of influence of Eve, which is going to be interesting with this current performance physics toggling on and off thing that we've got going on. But for now, let's just head on in here where we can kind of see what's going on. And I'd like to warp to about here. Now, this is going to pull us out of warp when we're approaching the sphere of influence change. And that's going to be kind of annoying, to be honest, because it takes so long to enter and exit warp right now. But sure. I guess this is fine. So we've got 505 meters per second left in our large tanks, but then we do have a small backup tank that will have some amount of additional fuel, and it looks like it's not going to be a whole lot of additional fuel, but it will have some. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. Okay, now we are in the Eve sphere of influence. Physics is toggling back on at this point, so it looks like it took us all the way into the SOI. That is fantastic. Glad to see that. Now we need to set up our braking burn at this periapsis. Now, I'm not sure we actually care all that much about our inclination here. Okay. Game is being a little weird, but whatever. Let's head in over this way. I want to check what this inclination is like. Yeah, we're definitely a bit inclined. I'm not too concerned about it, though. For right now, I want to create a maneuver plan right here. And we're just going to do a retrograde burn. Yeah, this is going to take very little DV to actually put us into an orbit. That's good. Okay, so this disappears after a certain amount of DV in here still. That's unfortunate, but we know that we can do this piecemeal. So that is fine. It is going to be a little tedious, but this is okay. So we can just do this burning a little bit at a time here. This is absolutely a-okay. We need to get lined up for this burn. That is mission number 1. We're going to start turning there. And now the question is, if this is 155 meters per second, what would bringing it down to 120 kilometers look like? Well, we just don't know, because our maneuver nodes are too broken to get that far. So we're just going to have to go for it and hope we have enough. But the nice thing here is we are definitely going to be entering orbit of Eve, which means that we can just bring over another pushing vehicle and have lots more Delta V. Because we didn't have to push our entire vehicle to get here, and it should be easy to have an encounter over Eve. So that's not going to be a problem in any meaningful way. Excellent. So this is all relatively fine, but it's going to take us a while to get lined up for this retrograde burn. No doubt about that. But yeah, this is a good encounter. That's for sure. The next question to ask is, do we want to attempt to fix our inclination here? Or do we just not care all that much? We might just not care, to be honest. I suspect we don't care. So that should be absolutely fine. Let's just get aligned off over here. Eventually we'll get turning. It will take some time. And I'm not going to make you sit through this entire turn. We will be back when we're a little bit closer. Okay, so here we are, pretty much aligned. Let's warp on forward, and we're going to commence this braking burn. It's going to be about a 1 minute and 19 second burn, so that won't be too bad. And let's just get aligned for this, and we'll see what this ends up looking like. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to do a burn at each apoapsis and periapsis until, and it'll be a maximum burn that the maneuver nodes will give us a preview for, and then we'll figure out what this ends up looking like, in theory. Hopefully, maybe once we actually achieve orbit here, maybe then it'll work properly. I doubt it, though. We'll see. So we're re-enabling physics at this point, but we are still 21 minutes away from this. Let's warp a little closer than that, for sure. 21 minutes is a ways still. So come on, let's bring this forward. Eventually we will get there. We're re-disabling physics. There we go. Now we're going to be re-enabling physics once we are like 40 seconds away. Okay, it's actually going to drop us, 40 seconds away. Looks good. We're going to re-enable time warp here, which is, of course, obnoxiously slow, but that's fine. This is way faster than just waiting for it. So, I mean, it's the best we can do. So back up to 10x we go. And with the physics disabled, we are going to, well, tick a lot faster. Yeah, this game is very finished. That's definitely for sure. No doubt about that one. So we've got about 30 seconds until this burn. Now about 20. We'll exit time warp at 10. There we go. And this will bring it down to about 5 seconds remaining. 4 seconds. Okay. Now we're re-enabling physics. And we're going to go up to 10x warp here. Maybe we should just burn out these larger tanks. Okay, let's commence. Actually, let's not commence the burn yet. We're still 3 seconds away. Well, it really doesn't matter. We can commence the burn now. It's fine. So let's get going on that. We're going to go up into 10x warp, and we're just going to let this burn on through. Let's make sure we're actually having an effect, because that can happen. It can just not work when we're in warp sometimes, but we're definitely having an effect here. So that looks good, and we see we are dropping this apoapsis. I'm actually thinking we're probably just going to continue this burn beyond the point here. I'd like to bring our apoapsis, in theory, down to 120 kilometers. That would be ideal here. And really, it's going to flip around so that the periapsis is below 120 kilometers. Or at 120 kilometers, rather. That's all absolutely fine. And yeah, let's... Approaching partially out of fuel orbital event. We are not. We're not almost out of fuel. We're getting lower, but we're not actually almost out of fuel here. Okay, I want this to be on retrograde. And we are going to get rid of this maneuver node. And now I want to go back into 10x warp. Because I want to keep bringing this apoapsis down for right now. I, at the very least, want to know how much fuel we have left up here. It's going to be a decent amount, for sure. So there's that. But I'm not sure how much DV we'll actually have. Okay, so let's slow this right on down, continue to drop our apoapsis as much as we can. We're going to get as far as we can on this. If we have to send up another pusher vehicle, that would be fine, but I'd really prefer not to. We're again approaching a partially out of fuel orbital event. Again, this isn't exactly true. We've got 314 meters per second left here, 15 tons of fuel in each of these. It's 10% remaining fuel in these external tanks. Let's bring it back up to 10x warp. I would really prefer if it didn't bring it out of warp without me telling it to, but, you know, whatever. I guess it's fine. So back to 10x we go. And it'll probably bring us out again soon enough. So we're down to about 11,000 kilometers at this point, and it is going to get tougher and tougher to shave off this speed. It's going to require more and more DV to do it. Okay, yeah, this brings us down yet again. We are not almost out of fuel, but whatever. I mean, we kind of are, but also we kind of aren't. It's going to be a bit yet, is the point. Okay, this all updated. That's noted. I'm going to take us out of the map view for now because I want to look at what we've got going on here. We're not quite at the retrograde marker, and I'd like to bring us over a bit. Yeah, this is looking better. Okay. There we go. Re-entering warp at this point. So that looks good. We've got a lot of distance still to drop here. Like, a whole lot of distance. We're at 9,000 by 4,000, right? So that's going to take a little bit of time. We need to continue to burn this, but we are going to run out of fuel in these external tanks fairly soon. And it drops us out of warp again. Okay. I wish it would stop that. That would be very nice. But alas, here we are. So once again, I'm going back into 10x time warp here. And we're just going to continue to burn this. I want to remain in 10x time warp until these are actually out of fuel. Once they're actually out of fuel, then this is fine. But we want to remain in warp for right now. No doubt about that. Presumably it'll pull us out here again. It seems to be pulling it out. Yeah, there it goes. It seems to be pulling us out pretty regularly because it's just like, you're almost out of fuel. And I'm like, yeah, but also it'll be a while. It would be nice if it wouldn't do this, but here we are. So it looks like we're going to have like 40 tons of fuel left over here, something like that. It's not going to be a huge amount, but it will be enough to propel us some amount of distance, so that's good. Do we want to just sit with it running like this for now? I mean, not really. We still have 8 tons of fuel. I want to bring it back up to 10x time warp. I want the physics frozen during this, and I want to burn off this fuel a little faster. But if it's going to continue pulling us out of time warp with extreme regularity, then there's not too much point, I think, in sitting in time warp at this point. Yep, there goes pulling us out yet again. We're burning about 1 ton of fuel, and then it pulls us out of time warp. Which, of course, it takes a long time to enter and exit time warp. Physics has to be disabled and re-enabled, or other way around. But, yeah, it definitely takes it some time. We see there's some bending happening out over here. Yeah, there's definitely bending happening here, which isn't at all ideal. So that's understood. I'm going to re-enter warp here just because we need to not be having this bending. That's not ideal. So we're going to reset the physics. Again, that's going to take a while, and it's going to pull us out of warp pretty quickly. Okay, so it'll pull us back out of warp shortly here. There we go. It pulls us out of warp, and it snapped the rest of this to be in line with the engines. Okay, I'm cutting our throttle on the engines for right now. As soon as it loads, it'll get there. There we go. So we have cut the throttle on the engines. The reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to make sure that we were right on that retrograde marker, which we pretty much are now, and I wanted to give the physics a bit of a chance to reset. So we're re-enabling the engines, and we're going back into warp. It'll drop us out very quickly. And the question is it even worth re-entering warp? Well, it prevents us from having the bend, is the thing. But it drops us back out of warp after burning only a quarter ton of fuel at this point. So I think we just have to let it burn in 1x at this point, which is very unfortunate. Because, yeah, we're definitely having some bending occurring here. No doubt about that. And this isn't burning out the fuel all that quickly either. But alas, here we are. This is the best we can do, I think. We're going to have to periodically reset our physics, I think. And yeah, you can see we're drifting off here, but we haven't actually turned. This is just caused by this bending right in here. There's nothing we can do about that. We can't strut this together anymore, so it's as good as it's going to get. Let's cut our physics right now. Or rather, cut our engines right now. And let's let this get a bit under control. So let's freeze the physics. And then unfreeze the physics so that we can reset back to retrograde. Eventually, we will get that completed. That went into 2x? I don't know why it went into 2x, but whatever. I guess that's fine. There's our physics resetting. You know what I'm going to do? No, I can't do that. I was going to say I'm going to remove the fuel here into the center tanks and then ditch these. We can't do that. The center tanks are full. So, yeah, that's not going to be a thing. We are going to have to reposition over to the retrograde node here, though. I wonder if we'd be better off burning at a small amount. So, if we were to bring this up... If we were to bring it up... Okay, that put it at 100. I don't want it at 100. I want to grab this and put it at, like, 33% thrust right now. So about there. That'll do for now. That'll give us a little bit of gimbaling, and I'm hoping it's not so much thrust as to cause this to rock around a lot. While still burning off fuel and decelerating us here. So that would be great if that actually works. I don't know that it will. We're basically circularized at this point, and I just want to ditch this fuel, right? But we need all of the fuel that we can get. So we're definitely going to have to burn off the rest of this, and I'm just looking at how long this is taking to burn down. It's not great. Let's try this at 50% thrust and see if we have massive amounts of bending at 50. We know we do at 100. But let's just see if we can figure out where we need to be here. 50 seems kind of okay. Okay, we can see that our periapsis is going down and not our apoapsis. That's fine. That is absolutely a-okay. We're going to continue to drop that for now. How much fuel is in these internal tanks? I don't actually know, but I guess it's fine for now. We will get that figured out once we jettison these tanks, and that will help performance. A fairly large amount, in fact. We should be able to run at 100% thrust like that without any major issues. But we do want to get these last 99 meters per second out of this, so that is absolutely fine. We're going to do what braking we can here. We seem to be pretty solid at 50% thrust. I'm going to try bringing this up to 66% thrust and see if that creates any bending issues. It looks okay for now. We'll see if any crop up. Okay, so we are letting that tonnage slowly go down. I would warp this, but the game won't let us. We just instantly drop out of warp at this point because our fuel levels are too low in these side tanks. So we just got to burn out the side tanks. It's okay. And our next staging event is firing these side tank detachments, so that'll be absolutely fine. We're going to get rid of those, and we're also going to get rid of some of our electric charge storage. We're also going to get rid of the majority of our solar panels. So that is noted, but we shouldn't have significant solar panel need from here on out, in theory. So it should be relatively fine. But I do want to continue to finish burning these tanks out. Once they're done, we'll see what this ends up looking like. So this is currently like 32 tons. Okay, so yeah, this is going to end up being a grand total of 40 tons of fuel. Okay, that's fine. Absolutely understood. Keep in mind, we're going to be ditching 8 of these engines, and we're going to be down to just 5 at that point. So that sounds good. We've got about 4 tons of fuel remaining now, and that will continue to drop off. 66% thrust appears to be holding pretty steady. We know that 100% does not, so I guess that's fine. That does mean that 100% thrust will hold steady once we ditch these side tanks. So that sounds good for now. We can also see our periapsis is going to be dropping down below 4,000 kilometers fairly soon. I'm curious to know how much Delta V will be in this tank here, though. The majority of our Delta V expenditure is done at this point, and I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to get this down without bringing in another pusher vehicle. That would be a fairly extensive project, although it would perform a lot better until we got to this point, so we'd be able to get here relatively quickly, and hopefully the maneuver nodes wouldn't break, but who knows. But yeah, this is definitely pretty solid here. I would absolutely warp this if the game would let us, though, because it's still going to be a little while on this burn. So I guess what I'll do is I will come back near the end of this burn when we're actually almost out of fuel. See you guys in just a bit. Okay, so here we are much, much closer to our out of fuel event, and you'll notice that we're at 100% thrust. It seems like it's able to hold steady as long as we gradually increase the thrust up to 100%. It's the shock of immediately kicking it to 100% that causes issues. So that's all wonderful. That, of course, means that we can drain off this fuel that little bit faster. We've got about 1/3 of a ton of fuel left in each of these tanks, and we're going to be jettisoning these tanks very, very shortly here. We've got about 6 meters per second overall left in this stage. You can see that our periapsis is down below 3,000 kilometers, and we'll see how much is left in this pusher vehicle. I would, again, really, really prefer that we not have the pusher vehicle have to be replaced. If it has to happen, it has to happen, but I would really prefer it didn't. Okay, so there goes those engines kicking off. Now I'm going to jettison them. I made a quick save before coming back here just in case. I pressed the spacebar and nothing happened. Okay, let's try that again. Now it's going. That was very loud. Cool. Okay. So we should jettison away from this. It should push out away, and we should, in theory, clear this very easily. Wow, that pushed actually really hard. Remarkable how hard that pushed, but okay, sure. So we're going to clear this without any problem whatsoever. Of course, our electric charge is going to be a lot less in terms of constant income on that, right? But that is absolutely fine. So we can see we've got 130 meters per second in this. Yeah, that's not a ton. So that's understood, but we can go back up to 10x time warp at this point. Okay, so let's get going on that. It looks like we might need a second pusher vehicle. We can definitely do that, because we want to get down to 120 by 120 kilometers, right? So that's definitely a thing that we could do. I'm not convinced it's a great idea, though. We'll see where our orbit ends up looking. But if we have to bring it, we have to bring it. And it's currently looking like we have to bring it. I would not be most pleased about that, but, you know, whatever. So we've got about 66 TV left in this. Yeah. Well, we can definitely get ourselves to a closer orbit. That's fine. So I guess we'll have to launch another one of these pusher vehicles and take it over here. I don't think we need any sort of a transit vehicle for it. I think we just launch one and send it over, and it'll have the fuel remaining, because it won't have to push all of this to get here, right? So it'll have a lot more fuel remaining when it gets here, and that would be a good thing. So we're going to run out of fuel here very soon. I'm imagining that this is going to, yeah, it's going to drop us out of warp here. So I'm not terribly surprised about this. It was always a question of whether this would have enough to get there or not, and it was going to be really hard to tell with the game being as buggy as it was. So that is understood. And you can see this is starting to oscillate around because of the immediately exiting physics. I'm not too concerned about that for right now. I'm just going to leave this be. And we're just going to keep decelerating, and let's see what orbit this puts us in. We've got 10 meters per second left. We're not going to get down to our target orbit. We're going to have to launch another pusher vehicle, but that's fine. We planned for that by having this be docked together like this. It was always the plan that we would have this capability. So that's fine. We just had no way of knowing exactly how far this was going to take us. And it took us far enough, no doubt about that, for it to be useful. But it didn't take us quite to our target destination. So here we are. That's fine. We're going to be untracking all of those bits that we just ejected. We're going to be untracking this as well. So that's all going to go away and is no longer going to be calculated. And we're going to have to bring in a second pusher vehicle, but we should be able to get here much more easily with just the pusher vehicle than with all of this. So it'll be less fuel consumption and better performance getting here a second time. In theory. Hopefully the maneuvers won't be quite as busted. That would be nice. But let's just burn this guy out. We've got about 0.8 tons left in each of these tanks. Or actually, 0.6 tons left, I think, total. Because this is showing per engine. But we've got 2 meters per second. Now, I'm not going to stage here. We actually need to undock this. So let's let that finish burning out. There we go. And now we're going to need to undock here. Eventually, it'll let me right-click. Okay, cool. So this is the remote control. Right. We need to undock, I think, here? No, that's the reaction wheel. This is the docking port. Okay, so we undock here. Beautiful. Once that gets caught up, this will all go away, and this is basically unfueled, right? Well, all of the fuel that it has is actually needed for the landing and takeoff procedure, more specifically. So that is all absolutely fine. And presumably these are now separate vehicles. Yes. Yes, they are. Perfect. So that is all absolutely fine. I want to head back to the tracking station now. And once the tracking station heads in here, actually we should probably go to the KSC first to have some performance, because otherwise we're still going to have absolutely no performance here. As you can see, the frame rate is still very, very low. So let's go to the KSC, and that will give us performance again, because we're going to be turning off the physics for our currently selected flight. And now we're going to be able to untrack the components of the pusher vehicle, at which point we will launch another pusher vehicle to go rendezvous and get it the rest of the way. We'll not need another one beyond this. This is all we need. In fact, another pusher vehicle will likely be significantly overkill, and that's fine. We are absolutely okay with that. Eventually, the KSC will load, right? I mean, it is time to put a cut in here, so I could just untrack these off camera once this loads in. It might take it a little while. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's past time to put a cut in anyway, so let's do that. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Ali Lee, Dark Horse Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.